podcast with Reputed G and Diggle Sauce coming at you. We're all business today. We got collared shirts and offices and things like that. So we're here to make some money on UFC 250. Coming up this Saturday, we're dropping the podcast a little early on a Wednesday. We're going to be talking DraftKings. We're going to be talking bets. Keep in mind, all the DraftKings talk will be based around about 20 lineups entries. That's how many entries generally me and Reputed G put in. So all of our talk will kind of be focused around that. With that, let's get into the first fight. We're not going to waste any time. All business and new sponsors. We got new sponsors. We got Construction Mass sponsors instead of Pellegrino today. So, shout out to them.
Maybe Pellegrino will make it back one day, but for now they asked us to stop showing their product on the air.
Yeah, they said we can't have that on the #1 MMA podcast on YouTube.
Yet.
Well, we are the best podcast on YouTube, so get ready. Let's go right into the first fight on the card. Let me pull this up here. We've got Herbert Burns against Evan Dunham.
Yep.
Herbert is the brother of Doreenhu, who Gilbert Burns had an excellent performance against Tyron Woodley, or Woodley had another poor performance, or however you look at it. This is brother Burns, brother Herbert. He is a -220 favorite, and on DraftKings he comes in at 8,900. So what do you think about this fight?
I love it. I think this one's great. I took a look at this and I was looking at the prelims and I was like, Evan Dunham. I was like, last time I saw him, he looked like real skinny, like he didn't look healthy when he was in there. And I didn't have like a good memory. It was like 2 years ago. And sure enough, it's because he got knocked out. So I looked at this fight and I think I probably did more research than I had to. But Evan Dunham's coming out of retirement. He was originally going to fight a few months ago. He was coming out of retirement. He's currently 38 years old. He lost to Francisco Trinaldo in his last fight, September 2018. It's almost 2 years ago. The fight against Trinaldo was not good. He circled away from Trinaldo heavily. He had a lot of just kind of like riding the bicycle sideways movement, trying to stay away from him. He'd come in, he'd strike, but it was like a very squared up stance where he would just lunge with the left and then throw the right, completely squared up, not like in a fighting stance. It was like a rush 1-2 and then out and keep going around. So the striking wasn't impressive. There was no power visible to it. And the fact was Trinaldo was able to easily counter him and also easily enter the pocket and engage with him when he wanted to. And Trinaldo's even older and I don't think he's like making a run for the title. Trinaldo has like some benefits to raw power and crazy athleticism for his age, but realistically, he's not a great fighter at this point in his career, and Dunham is even worse. So we look at that. We see Dunham loses to a KO. It was a knee to the body. It looked like he took a knee to like the high side of his right ribs, not even in the liver.
It was a liver. It was around the liver, I think.
Yeah, it was around the liver. So he takes a knee and he was out. It's not a good sign. He didn't look good at any point before that fight either. And so I look at that and I say, okay, who's next? Herbert Burns. Herbert Burns has a brother who's about to maybe fight, his teammate Kamaru Usman for the belt. And that's nice to know. But then you look at it and you say, okay, well, what has he done? Well, he KO'd Landwehr, who just fought my man, the Damage, Darren Elkins out of Indiana. And Landwehr is like a tough dude. He's like a mutant. I mean, he's got this big head that just takes punishing shots, and he got smoked. He got smoked by Herbert Burns. On the ground, he almost submitted him 2 different ways, stood up, they had like a quick flurry, and he knocks him out of the knee. I think there's nothing but upside for Herbert Burns. I'm super high on him. I think he's currently -220. He came in cheap on DraftKings relative to the odds. He should have been priced between like 9,100, something around there. And I think he came in like at, what was it, like 87? It was
89.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge value play, and I think he's going deep. I like him across the board.
Yeah, so Dunham historically never did anything with athleticism. He's always been a 155er that's kind of been plotty, kind of got by on his toughness, his durability, and his kind of cardio was always pretty good, and he would throw like decent combinations and volume, but he's an old, so just let me preface this by saying he doesn't have the gifts or the weapons that really won him fights because he's now older and doesn't have really any power. His speed's gone. I mean, I think he's going to look very slow in there compared to the younger, faster, more dynamic Burns. Now, Dunham has always been known as a pretty good grappler, but Burns is on a different level. This is different levels of jiu-jitsu. You're going to see that. Yeah. I mean, Burns, it's going to be a different level of jiu-jitsu. Now, this is not, again, I hate to get into the brother-sibling conversation because we just saw Antonina, Shevchenko fight, and she's nothing like her sister. But Herbert Burns is, he's really good. I think he's pretty good. I think he's gonna go through Dunham pretty easily, just because Dunham doesn't really have any way to beat him, other than even a prime Dunham would have to basically survive getting KO'd and basically use his durability to tire Burns out and then eventually try to overwhelm him with volume. But it's unlikely that he beats him in a grappling match. It's unlikely that he beats him in a boxing match, just because what I've seen of Dunham is just, it's declining. And, you really, this is a catch weight fight. So Dunham, last I saw on his Instagram, he was like 163 or something like that. And he looked okay, but he's going to cut down to 150. And Herbert Burns is going from, he was 145er, so he's kind of going up. But I mean, his brother did that as well, and they're both kind of built like brick shit houses. So I've got a lot of confidence in Burns here. In terms of ownership,
just to interject though, I think the weight cut is worse for Dunham at this point in his career, because as an older guy having to drop further than you're used to, I think that's even more like chin issues and cardio issues.
Yeah, but I mean, so my point is that he's if he posts a couple weeks ago or whatever that he's in shape at 163, it means he's kept his weight down. Like, he's not cutting an extreme amount. Like, 13 pounds for a professional isn't a ton. So I'm not. I just don't think like the catch weight is going to be that big of a deal. I don't know. I don't think so either. I think Burns is really going to run through him pretty easily.
I think he's going to walk in striking, because Burns will push the pace. He's not going to wait for Dunham to come to him. He's going to walk in there and he's going to start. And he throws like some nice kicks that are sharp, not like flashy stuff, just like to connect and close the distance, come in. I think he's going to get him up against the cage, probably land a few strikes, and then start working the chokes. And he's got nasty chokes.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. So in that price range, you have Menifield and Stamann above him. Of the three, because we know that O'Malley and Nunes are going to get owned a lot. So just in comparison to those guys in his price range, do we think Burns is going to be on the ownership scale? Because now we're talking about GPP play. Right. We both really like him. So are we, where are we at? Because it's my opinion that I like Burns more than Menifield and Stamann, because I see more ways for Menifield and Stamann to lose than I see for Burns to lose.
This is my mortal lock pick of the night also. I mean, this is the one that I'm like 100% on. This is my Kevin Holland from 2 weeks ago. Like, I'm super, maybe even stronger. I just feel like there's no way Burns can lose. So if he does, my bad, but I don't see it, at least on paper and tape and whatever else you got. I compared to Stamann and Nunes, like Nunes is going to be like 65 or higher. Like, everyone knows her. And that's another question for later on about, whether or not you can afford not to pick her. But I think Stamann is probably much lower. I think O'Malley is super well known too. And O'Malley's got like a crazy hype machine behind him that like even 2 fights ago, that he's got like huge like interviews and stuff and publicity. So people know who, like the general public, I think, knows Sean O'Malley to some degree. I don't think anyone knows who Herbert Burns is. And with the first thing,
his brother just fought, so I wonder if there's going to be more. And his brother looks so good that I wonder if that's going to.
If you ask me on the street, who's Herbert Burns? I don't know. If you said Gilbert Burns, probably most won't know. But I mean, even someone who casually watches, Herbert Burns is not a recognizable name, and I think it's largely due to that's how the ownership goes.
Yeah, so that brings us right to the next fight. So to cap Burns, I mean, we'll talk more later, but on the mortal lock thing. But I think Burns is going to run through him. So do you. So let's go to Menifield and Clark, because that's kind of a good fight to segue into, because Menifield is kind of right there with Burns in the same pricing kind of structure. Yep. So
yeah,
I've seen a lot of people that kind of Clark is just one of those guys that somehow he gets wins in the UFC. A lot of it is just like stalling and cage wrestling and winning rounds. Menifield is athletic. I think he'll be able to shuck takedown attempts and turn this into kind of more of a stand-up fight, and he's just going to be able to put him out.
Yeah. So this fight, I watched all the tape on him, and it's hard because it's a lot of first-round fights that are like 10 seconds. And we know Devin Clark pretty well. So I watched all the tape, and I was sitting there, and I was like, I don't know who's going to win, because I don't have like a sense of how is Menifield off his back. If he gets taken down, can he get up? Like, does he have a submission game? Like any of this stuff. And he's had so few takedown attempts on him in the UFC. There's no stats either for takedown defense or anything. So it's one where I started to go like a little crazy. Like I was listening to a podcast with who was the bully beatdown guy from like 10 years ago?
Mayhem Miller?
Yeah, Mayhem Miller has like some podcast. And
no way.
Yeah.
I watched Mayhem Miller fight Jake Shields in the most boring fight of all time live. Fun fact.
So Mayhem Miller, by the way, put on like a lot of weight. He looks like the Cookie Monster now.
He went to prison, I think.
Yeah. Why did he go to prison? They talked about that.
I don't know. I think he had like an assault rifle outside his home. He's acting crazy.
Okay. So anyways, Menifield has like he has like a horrible upbringing, right? So and this is all true. I'm not really even exaggerating. His mom is basically like a crackhead. They're immigrants from Belize. They grow up in, I think he said Compton, and his mom was like selling his Xbox to buy crack and get high, and like it's a total disaster, right? So eventually the government comes and takes him away, takes his brother away. He goes to like all kinds of foster homes. It's like it's like your classic fighter like overcoming trials and tribulations story.
But guy you really want to root for, right?
Right, which you got to be careful, because it's like you might think the guy's awesome, but and skilled, but you can't like get bent on the story. But he survives, and he gets lucky, and he finds a guy who actually cares about him and his brother. They kind of get together. They're playing football. He played arena football, Canadian football, and then he kind of was like.
He played at Alabama. Did he play at? I think it was a major college. Was it Alabama?
Yeah, I think it was Texas A&M. I think. But so he's in all these like pretty good like minor league football or Canadian football league, and he can't get into the NFL. Like it's just not happening. And he saw Rampage Jackson slam a guy live, and I forget what it was, but where the guy tried the triangle Rampage, and Rampage does the slam, power slams him, and he's like, this is cool. Like I want to get into this. So he's training. I think he was doing a little bit of jiu-jitsu like while he was doing football too. So, anyways,
it was Texas A&M, and he trains out of Fortis MMA.
Yeah, he's at Fortis.
So all
this is going on, and they're talking about the drugs and like everything that went wrong and how they kind of righted it. Mayhem's like, yeah, my mom was schizophrenic. She used to do stuff. It was crazy. So they're talking about all this nutty stuff. And the one little like tidbit that came out of it was he said that he works with a guy named Flo at Fortis, who's I think he was either an Olympic wrestler. I think he was an Olympic wrestler, and there's another guy who is a Division II like All-American wrestler. And so he is wrestling, and he said the reason why he doesn't try to choke guys out in the fights is because it's boring, and he wants to go in there and be an exciting fighter and finish guys and like get paid. So I said, okay, like that sounds right. And he's not one of these guys who's like exaggerating or trying to act crazy. Like it just sounds like he's a nice guy and he's just saying what he's doing. So I think that he has some wrestling and jiu-jitsu like in his back pocket, but you just haven't seen it. And the only piece of data I have to support this idea is when he fought Paul Craig. Paul Craig tried to kind of ankle pick him and like get him down, and they were on the cage together a little bit.
It didn't even look like he was ever in danger.
No,
really.
And there was one time where Paul Craig shot hard on him, and I think he had a leg, and you see Menifield's like kind of hopping backwards, switching legs, like. And there was one point where, like, in my mind, it was like he could give up right now and just like accept the position, and he didn't, and he kept moving. And so that's my thought, that like the wrestling defense against Devin Clark will probably be decent. Now, Devin Clark's like a bull, and he probably will take Menifield down once or twice, but I think that Menifield will be able to get up. I don't think it's going to be a lay on your back and die for 15 minutes. So that being said, I decided I think Alonzo Menifield will win by TKO or KO. Say in like maybe the second round, because I think he's going to play it careful not to get taken down right off the bat. And the best way to do that with Devin Clark is come out swinging hard and get sucked out immediately.
Mm-hmm. And I just, my only concern with this fight is that I am confident that Menifield wins this fight. My question is, does he get it done with a lot of volume? No. Does he get it done early then? Right. So he can.
Yeah.
But you could be.
His volume is way higher than I thought it was. And it's a small sample size, but they report on the UFC website that he's throwing like 8 strikes per minute, 8 significant strikes per minute.
Right. He's only been in there for a couple minutes though, but yeah.
But I mean, it's
it's interesting. Stat. It's like, he's been in there a couple times. He's not this unknown guy. He showed some skills, and we've seen from Devin Clark, we know what he is at this point, and he is not a dangerous striker. He's not really a dangerous top game guy. He can't finish many people, and he's got, he's been cracked before. So
Fun
it's
fact
kind of
about
like
Clark. Everyone he is beaten in his last like 6 fights, I think, are no longer signed with the UFC. Daquan Townsend, Darko Stosic, and I don't know if Slow Mike is still around or not.
I don't know. But Kelleher, Stansbury, Nick, those guys are gone.
He loses to good guys. He loses to Ryan Spann. He loses to Alexander Rakic. He loses to Jan, the Blastowicz man. But he's beating low-level talent from almost regional.
Yeah, and he's really beating them with control and a little bit of wrestling.
He's not finishing it.
It's not impressive.
If you can't finish Daquan Townsend, like he's a super regional guy.
All right. Well, let's move on to
again next. Also, I don't think Clark is any good as a dog either. I mean, like if he wins, it's going to be by laying on Menifield and getting a decision. And I don't think it scores well. Yeah,
I think for my 20 lineups, I'll have 0 Clark. So
that's what I'm thinking too.
He's just not my style of fighter to ever put any confidence in.
And also in his history, there's nothing to suggest that he's going to like pop off against Menifield
or improved. So
best case is like 70 points in a guy. Like it's probably a wash.
Yeah. So Perez versus Formiga, Jussier backpack, who historically in his career been a great grappler, great back taker, unconventional striker. I will say this as a Jussier backpack fan. I think this is where we see him really fall off. I think his time is nigh as a top guy in the division. These lighter weight classes, it's generally hard to sustain like a high level at the older age you get, just because some of the younger guys, they're so athletic, they're so fast, they're so dynamic. And I think Alex Perez is kind of I think his boxing is really going to give Jussier problems, and his stand-up is going to give him a lot of problems, and I don't think Jussier is going to find the way to the back very easily and kind of do his backpack thing. I think it's just going to be a tough fight for Jussier to win, and I'm really I'm on Alex Perez here.
So I think something similar but slightly different. I think the backpack man, Mr. Jussier, or just a backpack. His jiu-jitsu is scary for sure. Like if you're on the ground with him, it's scary. So in my mind, this whole fight boils down to like one thing, and that's just Alex Perez is either going to get subbed or he's going to win a decision. And if he wins a decision, I'm thinking, okay, like he's going to be they're going to be on the ground at some point for sure, 100%. And Jussier's going to be trying to jiu-jitsu him. And I think Perez is largely going to be trying to land strikes, but also he's going to spend a lot of time defending getting subbed because Formiga is fast. Like, even if he's not the greatest striker or whatever, he's fast on the ground, and he's going to try to sub him one way or the other. I'm worried that with all the defense that goes into this, and I've seen this several times where it's like a close fight in one area, there's more time on defense, and there's less scoring output. And so I think that Perez probably wins. I think he probably will control the ground without getting subbed. I think on the feet, Jussier's got to try to get off the feet immediately because Perez throws like almost a 4 or 5 to 1 ratio of strikes per minute. So, he's going to be trying to get it to ground. Perez will control it, but I think it's going to be a lot of defense. He can't just open up and go ham, even if he's in full mount, because Formiga can go out the back door and take his back. I mean, it's like you got to be careful with Formiga. Yeah,
so I think Perez, he's a real decorated high school wrestler. He's shown good wrestling. He throws good combos. He's hittable, but I just don't think Formiga can take advantage of anything because Formiga, Jussier backpack, he really likes to trip takedowns. He likes body locks. He likes scooting out to the back, obviously, and it's just like Alex Perez's skill set kind of denies everything he's trying to do.
Perez is a great fighter, and Formiga is in his own way too. But Formiga is like 35 years old at this point. Perez is 28. I think Perez, outside of that one like weird TKO from Benavidez, I think he's great. Like, he was on his way to fighting for the belt if he had beaten Benavidez, and to me it was like a weird fluke knockout because he kind of just collapsed on his face. Like, it looked weird when it happened. I think on the feet he's going to outpace Formiga like 4 or 5 to 1, and if it was only on the feet it'd be great. But Formiga's going to get into some kind of grappling or not like a double leg takedown, but they're going to somehow connect and go to the ground. And I think he's going to spend minutes trying to not get subbed successfully, but he's going to lose scoring on it.
Fair enough.
I'm not hot on the fight, only from the point of view that, one, if I take Perez, what do I got to pay for him? $8,300. That's probably
which is a pretty fair price, I think.
But is he going to rain down like 120 shots on Formiga from the mount? No way.
I don't know.
I don't think so. Formiga, he will be moving around. He's too slippery. He's too fast. Now, I'm going to have a little dog. Perez, I think. I think Formiga is a reasonable long shot for a GPP because if he gets like a first round sub, it's totally possible.
Yeah, he could if he gets on his back. But yeah, it's a tough one. But I think
Perez is going to win. I don't think it's going to score optimally. And I think for like a long shot on a GPP, Formiga is okay for like a small amount. I'm not endorsing him. There's a path to victory.
Here's my thing, though. There's not a ton of great dogs on this card.
Right.
And I think Formiga is going to be really highly owned.
There's also a well-known name. And he fought against multiple different champions. Like, I think he's pretty well known.
Yeah, and that's kind of why you look at this fight, you're like, oh, it's an even fight. Formiga's an underdog. Like, Jussier can win. He could get a sub. He can have upside. Good dog. I kind of feel like he's going to be played more than like a lot of other guys. So at least in that, I don't know. I think he might be over 20% owned, which is dicey for me in a GPP with a guy
with $1 million on the line. There's $1 million.
It's not my style. So,
well, I'm just saying the potential for him to win, there is a path to victory. Like, there is a way he can win. I think it's extremely unlikely. Kind of like the Tyrone Woodley situation last week. Like, you saw him throwing haymakers or whatever they call those, but he tried a few times. It's possible. It just didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's move on to Charles. What?
Moving on.
Yeah, we got Coconut Bombs, Pitolo, and that's my favorite nickname. And Charles the Birdman, Charles Byrd. Birdman, interestingly, has lost his last 2 fights, both by TKO. And he beat John Phillips, who's a pretty good puncher, but had zero wrestling.
Bad,
So that fight was really bad.
MMA fight at that time.
Yeah. So let's break this down, because we have Byrd as a minus 180 favorite, which is a little rough for me. And you got Coconut Bombs coming in as a pretty big dog here, which is interesting because I think early in fights, Coconut Bombs has really good power and speed in his hands.
They're moving up.
And yeah, so that's interesting. So I did see that, but that means, will Coconut Bomb still have the same power in that weight class?
Should have more, really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That might be wishful thinking. The problem that I had always with Pitolo, especially because I actually had, the veteran Potter in the last fight. I believe I had a little Potter, and part of that was because Pitolo was like a minus 400 favorite or something, and Pitolo has shown in his fights that he doesn't have very good gas tank. He doesn't have good fight IQ, and he's not a very good clinch grappler. But is Byrd gonna be able to get in the clinch and use his elbows and his wrestling and put him on the ground? Because if Pitolo ends up on his back again with the bigger man, Byrd, kind of similar body type to Potter.
This fight sucks. Like to figure out
break
what's going to happen.
Yeah, because we can easily see Byrd step in to try to get into a clinch and just get wiped out quick.
Yeah. So if
he gets into that clinch, it gets dicey for Pitolo. He's got to be able to break the clinch. And honestly, I'd like to see Pitolo, and as much as this might not be good for DraftKings scoring, is kind of slow that pace down, because I feel like he burns his gas tank a little fast.
I think if you just say that the fight's going to go to decision, then I think Charles Byrd wins the fight. If someone's getting finished, then I'm thinking it's like Pitolo hits him and he TKOs him, because for whatever reason, in Byrd's last two fights, he's been knocked out very fast and with very odd punches. Like Darren Stewart hit him once kind of clean and then once not so clean, and Byrd just teed over, fell down, and was laying there holding his head. And to me, it didn't look like he was unconscious. It looked like he just gave up and fell down and was confused about where he was or something. And against Edmund Shabazian, it was another one. It was not. Maybe I'm not thinking that one right, but either way, I just remember he's getting knocked out with what looked like not super powerful shots, not super clean shots. He's just getting knocked out. And so, I looked at it. He's 36 years old right now. I don't know when his birthday is. He's almost 37. He's a pretty old fighter. He's older than you would suspect just by looking at him. And I wonder if the chin is starting to show up for him.
I don't wonder. I have a pretty good idea that it is a problem for him.
Okay.
So I'm with you. So I've got Coconut Bombs in this fight just because I think he can put him away at some point. I just hope to see improvement from him, because the fight IQ didn't look very good. The gas tank didn't look very good. But those are fixable things.
The head movement was terrible too. He doesn't move his head. He just eats shots. I think Pitolo throws in combinations, which I like. He looks like he has some kind of stink on him a little bit.
He's got stink on it.
That's all good stuff. He's from Hawaii, right? So he's a knucklehead. I like.
Yeah, he's tough as shit, but
yeah. The Kalen Potter loss, I didn't like that. Kalen Potter's a guy you should be able to probably knock out if you're going places.
Absolutely. And Kalen Potter is not a good fighter.
It became a competitive fight, and then Kalen Potter controlled the grappling. And what I was most afraid of was that when Coconut Bomber was laying on his back, double, just hanging on for your life.
No jiu-jitsu, no clinch, no real clinch game. So he's got things he's really got to work on. But the thing about Coconut Bombs, all the things that he has intangibly, like the speed and the power, you can't really teach. The clinch game, getting up off your back, cardio, fight IQ. Those are all things you can
There's also
get
his
better
debut,
at.
so it's like this is just one of these issues where you have a guy who we think is going to get knocked out but can sub you versus a guy who we think can knock you out but maybe can get subbed. So it's just like a 50-50, and you're like, well, which one's more dominant? And it's like normally a grappler is more dominant than a striker, but
maybe not in this case.
What's more dominant, a chin or I don't know. So it's just like a mess because each guy has the path to beat the other guy, but Byrd's chin is a little scary, and so I wonder about that. Also, if Byrd just wins by decision, I don't think it's going to score well. So if he does get a hold of Coconut Bomb and just hang on to him, I think that he's not going to score real well. I think that's in the John Phillips fight, he won in the first round, against Darren Stewart. It's a better sample set. He scores 38 strikes in 2 rounds where he gets finished, I think, at least halfway through the second round. He has no takedowns. He has nothing. I mean, he tried to take down Darren Stewart, but the dentist said, no, sir. So 38 strikes, it's like this isn't revolutionary striking. Like you're throwing some strikes. I think even if he scores double that and he's at 80 strikes scored and 2 takedowns, what are we at? 50 plus a decision, 60, 80 points? I don't think it's worth it. It's hard to pay up at 8,800.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not going to be doing it. I think Burns and Menifield are much better plays. So moving on.
Yeah, and just, I have Pitolo marked as a dog. I think Byrd might sub him, but I don't know. It's a mess. It's like I'm not going to pay for Byrd. And the Coconut Bomber, if you're listening out there, please, if he's on you, turn into him, take one leg, and then stand up from there. That is all.
Yeah. So let's get into Stamann and Kelleher. We have Cody Stamann, who's kind of like a emerging fighter, emerging prospect. A lot of people really like his wrestling and his Golden Gloves background. Kelleher is a veteran.
Golden Gloves boxer?
I believe so. Yeah. He's got a boxing background. He's a methodical fighter.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Former Golden Gloves champion from what somebody might have to fact check that just to make sure.
Internets.
Yeah. The fact checkers these days, they can get on me. They might get after me on Twitter, but yeah, Kelleher, just fought Hunter Azure, who I was all in Kelleher on that fight because I thought Azure was really overrated. We both had that. Kelleher has a real dangerous guillotine. He's a pretty crafty striker. His physical gifts are, not to the elite of the division, which is why he will never really get past gatekeeper status. Yeah, and he's fighting at the featherweight limit, which is better. So. What?
You missed my short joke.
Oh yeah, I missed it. It went right over. It went right over my business-like haircut.
Very nice, by the way. Cleaning up.
Yes. So, man, now I'm tilted.
So yeah, no, you're right. Kelleher is short. He's not like physically gifted in the sense that some of these guys are, but here's the thing: is I like Kelleher. He fought Lineker. I like Kelleher in a lot of ways. Where I don't like him is necessarily against Stamann. And if you look at it, not that this really matters at all because I think it's based on like journalists, but Stamann's a ranked fighter. Kelleher's not. Kelleher is I think a little bit older as well. I think he's like 1 or 2 years older. Pulling it up right now, but he's 30 years old. 33. Stamann's 30. Like everything is just like a little bit going the right way for Stamann in this one. They're striking. If you look at that, they both throw high. Like Stamann throws 4.25. Kelleher's throwing 5. That in itself isn't a significant difference, but it's still a benefit to Kelleher. But the grappling is massively different. 3.5 for Cody and 1.25 for Kelleher. So. If you say, how's this fight go? I think it starts standing, as they all do typically, and there's striking, there's some exchanges, and I think
they crawl to each other and get into a grappling.
I mean, it does happen, right? Like, how many times I've seen John Jones like spider walk out there. So I think probably they're going to get into some exchanges. I think that Stamann's going to be better at the exchanges, though, and I think he'll work the punching and striking exchanges into takedowns, and that's where he'll control the fight.
So agreed that the more methodical fighter, the more polished fighter is and when I say polished, I mean, Stamann's going to have crisper boxing. He's going to transition to takedowns. He's going to be pretty methodical in his pros. Now, if this fight can pace up and Kelleher can pace this fight up, I think that's good for Kelleher. In grappling scrambles, I still think Kelleher can be dangerous with the guillotine. I'm not advising like a huge play on Kelleher. I think Stamann wins this fight. But listen, am I going to be shocked if Kelleher submits Stamann, who's a blue belt in jiu-jitsu? No, I'm not going to be surprised because
Kelleher is a blue belt though?
Yeah, I think so. Kelleher is just a dangerous guy, man. He's just a dangerous guy. So it's not an easy fight for Stamann. It's on paper, it's easier than it is in real life. Like, Stamann's going to have to come to fight. And I believe Stamann has had some personal stuff going on. I think he just lost his brother, which is, really sad and just a tough situation outside the octagon. So
yeah, and who knows how that's going to affect him. I mean, it's like, you saw it a couple weeks ago when my boy, the big man,
Perez.
Perez was in there, and it's like he just had all this horrible stuff happen with his stepdaughter, and he didn't win. And so that's no guarantee that like something terrible happens in your personal life, you're not going to rebound or be better in the octagon. But Stamann seems pretty focused, and I think he has the skills in his back pocket to do what he has to do. I don't know. Maybe he comes out and goes crazy on Kelleher. That's possible, but probably he's just going to do what he normally does for 15 minutes and move on with his life. I think Kelleher could win. The only thing is that when I look at this, I feel like I just feel like Stamann probably is going to be more dominant in the exchanges, and if Kelleher's only way to win is going to be by like a fluke knockout or a guillotine choke that he catches in a transition, I don't think that that's super likely.
Yeah, but so when I'm saying that kind of stuff, the reason I'm doing it is because, again, I'm comparing him in his price range to Menifield and Burns, who, in fact, I have more faith in to win their fights handedly, versus Stamann, who should win his fight, but to win his fight, he should fight at a slower pace, right? He should pace back because I think Kelleher has a better gas tank. So he should pull the pace back. He should be more methodical. Yeah, but even if they're grappling, like, Kelleher is probably not going to just accept position because Stamann has shown good takedown offense, good offensive wrestling, hasn't necessarily showed great control. So, that's where I think there's going to be scrambles and pace up situations.
Stamann is probably still an improving fighter at this point. Kelleher's probably peaked. Like, I don't know that he's going to suddenly learn like some new technique and revolutionize the game. Yeah. And he's physically not going to get better probably than he is today. Stamann also, though, if you look at the record, he just fought Song Yadong, and it came in a draw. So, in my opinion, Song, who I think lost to Chito Vera but was given the decision, it was a close fight either way. Those are two of the best guys in the division today, like two of the best up-and-comer real prospects that should be around for 5 years. Mm-hmm. If you're having a draw with Song, you're doing something right. Song would probably kill Brian Kelleher. Like, he would smoke him at some point in that fight, and Kelleher would be waking up, like, in the back room asking where he was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So my MMA math suggests that Stamann having a draw with Song Yadong, that he scored 64 points in, and there's no points, like, added for a decision or a draw or anything. Even if it was a decision win, if it tweaked slightly the other way, that would have been 94 points against Song Yadong if he won that. And so I'm thinking that this is a step down in competition, and it should feel a lot easier to fight Kelleher than it did a couple weeks ago against Song Yadong.
Yeah, I can get with that. Let's move on to the next fight.
Real quick, I got one last comment. This with Stamann too. I'm not looking at him as a comparison to Herbert Burns or Menifield so much. I'm looking at him as a comparison to Nunes and O'Malley, because I think that he's probably a sleeper, like 9,000 guy in that range, because he could score really well, and you're pivoting off of the highest owned people on the card.
Good point. It's a good point. So let's go into Heinisch and Meerschaert, who a lot of people have talked up Meerschaert as a good betting underdog here. He's minus 105.
Who are those people?
They're people on the internet because he started at plus 120. I think he opened at plus 120 and he's got bet down to minus. So that means, someone out there is crazy and stupid and thinks that Gerald Meerschaert's going to – I'm just kidding. Meerschaert fights out of Duke Rufus's camp. He's been there for a while. Listen, this is a similar – I look at this kind of similar to where you have – a guy that's going to be more physically gifted in terms of speed, wrestling, athletic ability, and Heinisch is fighting probably a guy who has a little bit more training. He's, has a little bit more diverse strikes. He's a southpaw, which gave Ian Heinisch a little bit of problems when he fought Derek Brunson. And, grappling transitions, Meerschaert could maybe find his way to the back. But honestly, I think Meerschaert gives up a ton of, he doesn't have good defense anywhere. He gives up takedowns. He gives up shots. He takes shots. I think Heinisch is such an offensive kind of whirlwind that he's just going to put a ton of volume on him in this fight, and he's going to win this fight.
I feel like you're confusing Heinisch with Drew Dober because I feel like they look kind of the same, but I think the opposite. I look at Heinisch, and I see in his last two fights, one he had no takedowns, one he had 3. He throws almost exactly 55 significant strikes in every single fight. I don't see any sign that he's improving, and I don't see any sign that he can score well ever. Even when he wins, he'd score 70, 76. He's 8,400. I don't think there's any history to justify him being paid 8,400. The issue I have here too is that Meerschaert has a 5.5-inch reach advantage, which statistically is a big favorite for someone with that kind of reach. I also think that the grappling is going to be a factor. But even if they're standing up, Heinisch has to literally jump in the pocket 5.5 inches before throwing. And I think Meerschaert is smart enough to jab him. I don't think it's going to be where Heinisch can get in there and just wombo combo and then run away. He's slow. His output's bad. I think all around, Heinisch is okay as a fighter. He needs to improve in volume and wrestling, but and probably diversity of striking. But I think Meerschaert has a reach advantage. I think he has a grappling advantage. The strikes are Heinisch throws about 1 more per minute than Meerschaert. Meerschaert throws about 2 more takedowns per minute or per 15 average. I just think at some point it goes to ground. Meerschaert's going to buy time. I think for an underdog, it's a great pick. I don't think you could ask for more. Anytime there's a reach advantage and a grappling advantage, it sounds good to me.
Yeah, fair enough. My only thing is sometimes I think it's important to look at in losses what these guys kind of give up, how many points they give up in a loss. And Meerschaert historically, when he loses, gives up a high amount of points. So yeah, I mean he's if you like him, you like him. Again, it's not really my style. I never really like Meerschaert for whatever reason. When I watch him fight, I don't really necessarily like him. Maybe I do like Ian Heinisch just because of his toughness and he's going to fight for your money, and I like that in a fighter. I think this fight's going to be a little bit more chaotic though than you think, and could be higher scoring than you think.
Yeah, I just think that if Heinisch in 4 fights hasn't scored over 70 or whatever, I don't know why it's on Saturday. That's
I mean, switch. Okay, so if you look at it, he fought Shoeface, Carlos Jr., he fought Ferreira, he fought Brunson, Akhmedov. None of those guys push any kind of pace at all. And he, and I think he did well in the grappling with Shoeface. Even if you think he lost that fight, I thought he did well against Ferreira.
No, I think he did okay.
He did well against Meerschaert. He did well against Shoeface. 2 Brazilian grapplers. Brunson, he had a little
Shoeface and Mutante.
Yeah, he had a little bit of trouble with Brunson's southpaw stuff, but and again, I think Brunson was a little longer than him, if I remember, which did give him. So that's Meerschaert, could do the same and give him problems because he's a southpaw and a little bit longer. So, but again, Akhmedov, I don't think he's a high volume guy. So I don't know. I just think this fight might be a little chaotic. That's just kind of Meerschaert's game. Is he kind of likes to get in there and fight, and he's trying to get a bonus or whatever. So
my problem is
could be a little
pace.
crazy.
I think my problem is just the pace with Heinisch. Like, I feel like he doesn't know what to do to win fights yet. Like against Akhmedov, he's going for takedowns and like he was getting whipped on in the striking, and so he's going for takedowns, and then he was kind of getting rolled over and messed up there. With Shoeface and Mutate, it's kind of the same thing, but I feel like he's almost winning just by like, not by luck, but like, here's my output. Let's see if it works tonight. And it's not like he isn't like catering these outputs to any particular opponent. Like, it's not like he's having 8 takedowns against one type of guy who can only strike, or he's throwing crazy volume on somebody who he doesn't want to go down on. It's all the same output every single time.
Mm-hmm.
That's my only point. I just don't think he knows how to like switch gears. I think he just has one right now.
Fair enough. So sounds like you like Meerschaert. We can move on to Caceres versus Hooper, which is a total setup fight for Hooper. It's very similar to the Kron Gracie fight. Caceres can get subbed very easily if Hooper can get him down. Now, Hooper's not a very good offensive wrestler.
It's a small arena too.
Yeah.
Small octagon this week.
Yeah, small octagon is definitely
going to
definitely benefit Hooper. Steven Peterson couldn't get Caceres down at all.
Like briefly, very briefly.
Yeah, it was an ugly, terrible
Steven
fight,
Peterson's jiu-jitsu is not the same. Like, he had more of a wrestle attack, and Hooper's much more of a like hang on your back. More of like a Daniel Cormier inspired takedown, I think. Like,
yeah, and I mean this is definitely going to be this is a setup fight for Hooper, right? If Hooper can't get a finish here, then we got to seriously look at Hooper as the hype may not be very real, because I think this is a total setup for him to get some type of submission finish.
Yeah, I mean, so Chase Hooper beats the Bad Tamer. I don't know, a couple months ago, he beats the Bad Tamer. There's 2 tamers, for everyone who doesn't know. There's a good tamer and a bad tamer. Daniel, I think, is the bad one. He beats him.
We all have similar haircuts.
So the bad tamer goes down. He gets TKO'd. I think it was how it ended. He tried to choke him. He couldn't finish the choke. He TKOs him. Awesome. 20-year-old kid. It's like a dream, right? He starts off as a teenager. Dana White gives him a part-way contract, developmental contract, and says, go get some more fights, come back. Beats Daniel Tamer. That's not like an earth-shattering win for like the UFC, but it's good for this kid.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
Now he's got Caceres, who's a name. He's a veteran. He's wily. He doesn't want to engage. He's an old fighter. He wants to circle, strike. That's all he wants to do for 15 minutes. And Hooper looks like he has much more of like a jiu-jitsu game and a ground and pound game than a striking game. So Hooper has to close the distance and take him and get him down or on the cage or something. The smaller cage will help Hooper 100%, because Caceres won't have the same room to run around. So he's going to have to engage him. Hooper has demonstrated that he's super tough. He looks like, even when he's in bad positions, like Daniel Tamer was beating his ass for a minute when that fight started, like an old man at a barbecue just putting it on a 20-year-old. And it was like, oh, like this Hooper kid is screwed. And his neck was going the wrong way. He had to like jump and kick off the wall to survive. But he did. He survived, and he's tough. And the one thing I'll give him credit for is his jiu-jitsu forms look super sharp. Like when he's in side control, his right knee is up against the guy's hip. He's got his left arm under the guy's neck. He's in a gable grip. Like he's
great
hanging on.
Shoulder press. Good press.
It is good press, but also it's like the frames look nice.
Yeah.
When he's on the back, it looks nice. Like,
yeah, he's got some very, very tight jiu-jitsu. We love to see it.
Which is great, because that's actually what stopped Tamer, because Tamer tried to brute force his way out of a hold at one point.
Can't do it.
He just tired himself, and it was over. So jiu-jitsu looks great. The recipe is there for him to win. And whether it's by TKO or whatever, it doesn't really matter. Probably it's a sub, because Caceres is pretty slick with defending. My fear, though, again, with this is you've got a guy who doesn't want to engage and wants to run around the cage for 15 minutes. If Hooper doesn't get him down, or even if he does but can't really do any damage, this could be a terrible scoring fight.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, I think Hooper should win, but I also think that even if he gets one takedown per round and can hold Caceres, it's fine. Like, he'll win the fight. it's a winnable fight. There's almost no damage from striking with Caceres as long as he engages and takes them. But Caceres scoring, it's going to be terrible. Where is he? Right here. He's scored less than 80 points in his most recent wins. It's been almost 4 years since he scored over 100. That's happened twice in his career. I mean, there's nothing like this. Isn't DraftKings optimal. Hooper could be if he finishes him early.
Yeah, and from a betting standpoint, like I think Hooper is if you can get a Hooper by submission, it's probably a pretty good bet. At a reasonable price. Or
inside the distance, yeah.
Yeah, inside the distance we like. So let's move on because we're both on the same page there. I'm going to have some Hooper for sure.
Yeah, it's the next domination or just bad decisions from Caceres, I think.
Yeah. So the next fight, now we're on to the main card, I believe. It's
yes.
Dude, Eddie Wineland. We saw him knock out Grigory Popov, and his family was sitting right next to us. And you were rooting on Popov because you had bet on Popov. And this little TIE fighter comes in, and you're rooting on this Russian man to beat the local Eddie Wineland. And we're literally sitting right next to his entire family.
His whole family.
He knocked his ass out, and they just looked at you and were like, yeah! And it was just.
I was like, I have $5 in DraftKings on this guy.
Yeah, it was a huge L for you. Tough scene, but Wineland's back in the octagon.
That was my sneaky play, man. I thought on that slate, I don't remember why, but I just remember thinking, I was like, Eddie Wineland's been around a while, and this Popov guy looks like a tough Thai kickboxer. I was like, maybe he can kick. Like I had and I think in the regional scene, he was like kicking the hell out of people.
Yeah, I think it turned out that he was way too small for the weight class, and Wineland just like beat his ass.
I vividly remember like drinking a beer, and I saw Wineland like real quick. He went like do bang, and I saw Popov go down, and I was like, I'm totally hosed here.
yeah, that was crazy. But
shout out to the Wineland family. I can't bet on Wineland again.
You can't bet against him or bet on him.
I can't bet on him, man. I listen. I think his family was very nice.
Condolences to the Wineland family, but you can't bet on him.
I don't know how you go from fighting Grigory Popov, who's been booted from the UFC, to Sean O'Malley. But what kind of jump is that?
The jump is okay. Wineland's been around for a while. They want O'Malley to get finishes because, listen, I feel like the UFC they were building Sean O'Malley as a star, and then he had a USADA suspension, which really wasn't great because they put some equity into O'Malley to push him. And because O'Malley's got this personality, he's got the Twitch channel, he's got young fans, he's got a following. Yeah. So he's kind of like a McGregor-esque striker with how he moves.
Yeah.
Very karate style.
In his last fight, that's when I made the decision mentally. I was like, all right, I'm on him. Like his striking, I mean, it's different than McGregor, the style, but the accuracy and the power is real. He fought Quinones. He made Quinones look like a fool out there. Like he was battering Quinones, and Quinones had no answer to it. And Quinones is like a decent striker. Like he's in the middle of the pack. He knows how to strike. He can finish guys occasionally. And O'Malley just whooped on him. In fact, I think Quinones is probably better than Eddie Wineland too. Again, sorry, Wineland family. It's nothing personal.
Yeah. Agreed that Wineland is probably in way over his head here. And I don't think he can land any kind of knockout punch. I think that this is one of those fights where if Eddie Wineland wins, it's just some complete fluke of nature because the last Sean O'Malley that I saw is pretty dangerous, dude.
And it was only not even 3 months ago, about 3 months. But the Sukumtov fight was awesome. It showed like some kind of crazy heart when he had a broken leg, and it also showed how stupid Sukumtov and his whole corner are because they're like the dude can't stand. If you just like push on his shoulder and he can't stand up, the fight's over, you win. And Sukumtov is like trying to grapple him, which is like just unbelievable. Like I can't stress how dumb a lot of these coaches and corners are. Like the fight IQ is abysmal and also dangerous to the fighter if you're that stupid. Like It's true. Like they're really bad.
They're really bad.
The Quinones win, I think, was legit. I mean, maybe he's on juice or something again, but beating Quinones first round KO, I think, is a very positive sign because you should be first round finishing guys that are beneath you in skill level. And so that tells me his ceiling is much higher, and I think he's going up. I think Wineland's going to get knocked out first round, probably same thing. He's going to want to engage with him, and I think he's going to get probably kicked in the head, finished.
Yeah. So we all agree on that. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist.
What do you think O'Malley scores, though?
Yeah, what do you think the ownership is comparatively to the score?
Ownership is going to be super high.
Yeah.
And I actually, he's going to win, and he's going to win via finish. So the question is, how many points does he tap on before finishing Eddie Wineland? Is it 5 or 30? That's the big thing. Because if he scores 90 and he costs 9,300, it's almost like that's not ideal. But if he can knock him down and score 10 points, land 10 strikes, and then finish the fight and score 105, it's probably ideal.
I will say this right now. I think that he could outscore Amanda Nunes.
Do you think Wineland doesn't have the ability to die?
I mean, I think that Wineland's going to have such a tough time in this fight.
He's been knocked out years ago.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Wineland is not a guy. I don't think Wineland is going to say, hey, I'm going to cage wrestle Sean O'Malley in the small octagon and tire him out because his only weakness is cardio, and I'm going to have a perfect game plan.
Where's Eddie?
I don't want
wrestling Sean O'Malley, smartest thing any human could possibly do.
Yeah, so I mean, if you cage wrestle and clinch and stay very close to Sean O'Malley, that's where you want to be, especially with the little octagon. It would be doable. On the ground.
Yeah.
But the footwork is going to be just – I just think Wineland's going to try to set up in the pocket and throw knockout shots because that's kind of what he does, and he's just going to get destroyed.
Yeah, I just wonder how long it takes to finish him and how many strikes he can eat and if he gets knocked down. That's the whole thing. And also the ownership.
Because you could see 2 or 3 knockdowns before this fight stops, man.
I don't know, man.
It could get ugly, man.
He got knocked out in 16 first round, and then he lost 2 decisions, one to John Dodson, which I can't fault him for that. That guy just runs in circles. And then he beats Popov with a finish. I don't think he's a resurgent powerhouse in this division. I think the UFC's using him on the downward part of his career to build someone else up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're both on the same page there. So,
but Eddie Wineland, for the love of God, just throw the game plan out the window. Just go in there, take him down to the mat, and put your elbow on his face for 5 minutes at a time. If you do that, you can win.
So he's not going to do that. So I'm going to bet Sean O'Malley. Well, I'm not going to bet him, but I'm going to have him. I might try to find some Sean O'Malley first round finish props and stuff like that. But yeah, I like O'Malley a lot. So as does the entire world. The next fight is Rocco Martin against Neil Magny, who Neil Magny looked pretty okay in his last fight against the Leech. That was a pretty good fight.
Yeah, it's
from
excellent.
Neil Magny.
And I'll tell you this, my boy, Tony Rocco Martin here, he is from Palos Heights, Illinois, which is very close to where I grew up. And I'm a huge fan. I've been betting on him for good or for bad for the last couple of years. But
it's worked out because he's
mostly won.
Got a very nice record in the UFC. I mean, his last 10 fights, what is he? Wow, he's got he's 8-2.
It's he lost to OAM in 17 in a decision, which I don't remember it. Who knows what happened?
All decisions. Yeah, there's a ton of decisions on his record.
And so then he loses to Damian Maia in a decision, but he wins almost all the time by decision too. So the thing is, I really, really like him. Hometown guy. I support him. Unlike the Eddie Wineland family. I don't know why I have to have a feud with the Wineland family. I thought
you're loving on all these local guys. Yeah, you gotta single out Eddie Wineland. bet all Russians against him.
I think Wineland's probably from the north side, but Tony Martin's from the south side. So my south side brethren. Here's my problem, though, is the best that Tony Martin ever did, the best thing he ever did in his career, like if you just look at scores, when he was wrestling the most, he was winning a lot. And it was early in his career. He had more takedowns in the early part of his career than the later part of his career. He has almost none anymore. Like, he's not actively taking down anyone.
Okay, so can I interject a little bit? Is it because Tony Martin has fundamentally stopped trying to wrestle, or is it because he was never really that good of a wrestler, and the higher in competition he's gone, the more he struggled to actually wrestle?
I don't know. I don't know why it is, and it could be that the competition's hard. Like, listen, I want to try to take down Damian Maia either. Like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I think that you just see that there's a lot more wrestling. But like Nakamura, yeah, take him down, like smash him. Ryan LaFleur, take him down. I mean, there's guys in here that I'd be comfortable if I was Tony Martin. I think, anyways, take him down. So that's all. And the thing is, he's basically a decision fighter at this point. He's winning based on striking decisions. There's no takedowns. He throws a lot of kicks. He has a weird stance. He throws combinations. I'd say he has like moderate power. It's not like world-stopping power or anything, but the volume's not super high. He's really become like a guy who's like almost too smart for his own good, where like he's trying to counter shots perfectly and win these like razor thin decisions.
Can I just kind of cut this off here, because we've probably gone too long in this fight. This is not a very good fight for DraftKings. I got Magny, but it's not a good fight for DraftKings. I'll say that.
So I also am on Magny, unfortunately, but I think Magny has the potential to score super well.
So yeah, okay, fair enough. I am not like a huge fan of this fight in terms of scoring, but if you like Magny and want to take some shots, I think Magny's going to win.
One fun fact that we'll move on is Magny has a 6.5-inch reach advantage, which again is statistically relevant, and I think his volume is also much higher.
And yeah, he did look good from the outside striking.
Looked awesome against the Leech.
Yeah, looked awesome against the Leech. So we're getting now to the next fight on the card, which is the most fun fight. That's why I'm trying to move you along.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. I like this chat.
Yes, this is the best fight on the card.
Agreed.
This should have been a main event fight. On a I'm really bummed this isn't a main event fight and a fight rounds. We're getting cheated. We're getting cheated out of 2 rounds. And honestly, this should be for the title. Because Cejudo gave up the title.
It's a title. It's a title challenge eliminator, is what it is.
But then who do they fight?
Let me look.
Dominic Cruz again?
No, they got Peter Yan in there.
Yeah.
Jose Aldo, they trying to force in for name recognition. Pedro Munoz, I think, is capped.
So here's the thing. This is the fight that's going to determine who the best fighter in the world is at this weight class.
Marlon Vera.
So, it's a Shark Tank in that division right now at the top. But Sandhagen, man, I just did a lot of tape on Sandhagen. I love how he throws his jab. He's an excellent. He definitely feints and jabs very well. He throws a very nice jab, left hook to the body combination. He switches stance well, and he jabs off of it. His he fights out of Team Elevation, which is, he's going to have good cardio. He's got great training partners, got great coaching. Magny, I believe Magny is the team captain of that gym, and Rose Namajunas and Alistair Overeem and Curtis Blades, a lot of really good fighters out of that camp there in Colorado. But Sandhagen is a dangerous man. He has got excellent kimuras, and he uses his kimura in grappling transitions. He's an excellent transitional grappler where he will switch kimuras to arm bars, and he's very dangerous with leg entanglements, which is something that transitions from no-gi. Like no-gi jiu-jitsu is, you have to understand leg entanglements, and I still feel like that part of the game, we saw it with Mackenzie Dern last week.
Knee bar.
Some people are on different levels with these leg entanglements because it's a big no-gi jiu-jitsu thing, and I feel like Sandhagen uses the leg entanglements really well. So he's just super dangerous transitionally grappling. He's a very high volume fighter. He, again, fights for your money. He will not tap out to anything. Remember when his arm almost got broken in half by Yuri Alcantara? I believe he got dropped in that fight, too.
He was soaked in blood, I think, too, and he just was raining down on him.
Yeah, and he would not tap out to the armbar. Sandhagen is just he's
a savage, man.
He's a tough son of a gun. He is a tough son of a gun.
Dude, if I was at a bar and somebody was drunk and mouthing off, like, I would want Sandhagen next to me to be like, let's do this. Like, he reminds me also of like a Southside bar fighting kind of guy. Like, like he's nuts. He's totally crazy. Yeah, he's lost his mind, and he's awesome.
Yeah, and so a big fan of Sandhagen. He's very Ferguson-like with his jabs, where he can switch and come in and out with his jabs.
Yeah.
And I think that, when he's fighting Aljo, who I got a ton of respect for Aljo because we saw him fight in Chicago, I believe.
Yeah, against Pedro Munoz.
And I'll tell you, man, Aljo has just improved tremendously.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of great wins on his record. He keeps improving. He does a lot of stance switching as well. Has gotten a lot better as striker. Aljo's primarily a grappler, offensive wrestler. But
what's going to dictate who wins this fight, though?
So what's going to dictate, because this is, again, a small cage. So I originally thought the small cage helps Aljo with his offensive wrestling. But here's the thing. Sandhagen just does not accept position. And in scrambles, he's going to be looking for leg entanglements. And I don't know, man. I just have a feeling that that Sandhagen's kind of unconventional grappling is going to get him out of the bad spots of Aljo. And when you're on the feet, the stance switching, the dynamic strikes of Sandhagen. In other words, the combinations and the feints where he sets up left hooks to the body, he sets up a lot of body shots, which you don't see, which wear down other fighters and makes it seem like Sandhagen is just this incredible cardio machine. But what happens is over the course of a fight, these fighters are taking a ton of damage from Sandhagen to the body. Yeah. And they're getting hurt. And I just wonder, if Aljo continues to improve, is he physically strong enough to hold down Sandhagen? Can he dominate him physically? Dominate him against defense? Again, this should be a 5-round fight, but it's only 3, so the pace is going to be, I think, higher than normal than both of these guys fight. And I think it's going to be a really fun technical matchup. It's hard to pick a winner, but I think I've got Sandhagen to win this fight.
Yeah, I do too. And just to be quick, the Sandhagen's strikes per minute on the UFC website is significantly higher. It's like 8, and I think Aljamain Sterling is I'm looking at grappling. It's 4, right? So it's almost double. I think dynamic transitions, dynamic wrestling, like not just strictly frames, like I'm inside control, I'm shooting for a single leg. I think that favors Sandhagen 100%. The small cage is going to make more like weird situations happen, I would guess. I think that favors Sandhagen. I think that Aljamain also really only has like 3 main attacks. Like I think he can shoot for a takedown head on. I think he throws like a lot of kicks. And I think he has basic punching. Like I don't think you're going to see anything real bizarre come out of there. He has like basic frames. Like this is what I train. This is what I do. And I think that when it goes funny and they're on their side or something and Sandhagen's raining down, I think that's where he's going to pick up the parts where he starts to advance his win.
Yeah, I wonder if Sandhagen has been training with Gaethje at all too, because I know Gaethje trains up there, I think, from time to time. And one thing about Sandhagen too is he's got excellent leg kicks because he'll feint and use his jab to get you on your lead leg or leaning one way, and he will crack your leg. So I think he's got, generally you would say Aljo has better kicking game, but I'm not really so sure in this fight.
It's also kind of like only his game. Like he doesn't have a lot outside of that. Like he isn't mixing up like all different strikes and kicks. It's like he has like a forward kick and like a calf kick. Like he throws 2. I've never seen him throw an axe kick or like a wheel kick or anything different. Yeah. It's all the same thing.
It's very listen. Aljo does what he does very well. Like what he does very well.
The fight's going to be close. If it goes to judges, it could definitely go to either one, before seeing it. But I think it's a really close fight. I think I like both guys. Like normally I would take Aljamain against most of the other guys in the division. Same with Sandhagen, but I lean Sandhagen. And just for like the mathematical part, like his output should be higher. On paper, he throws more strikes. He's a similar grappler. I think he's more dynamic. He should be able to win the fight if it goes to decision, if not earlier. I think Aljo also might have a slightly worse gas tank than Sandhagen, but that's like a small thing.
Yeah, so I think we're both on the same page. Now the question is I'm gonna have pretty heavy exposure to Sandhagen. I think at 8,000. I wonder if a lot of people are also going to, or are they going to find it as such a close fight that they don't really want to pick a side?
Yeah, I don't know. I think actually I was reading something earlier. It sounded like Sterling was like a more well-known guy, like maybe a bigger favorite for people. And I think Sandhagen's like not as well known.
Well, he will be. I think he will be after this fight, win or lose. He's gonna make this thing a party.
It's gonna be good. I like it. I think that's fight of the night too. Cody Garbrandt and Raphael Assuncao.
So I got to watch a lot of Assuncao because I watched the Sandhagen fight, and Assuncao is actually interestingly also a stance switcher and but he's a little slower. He's a little less dynamic, and I think we're gonna see Cody really break out. He moved to Mark Henry's camp, so he switched coaches. I think he needed to take time off because he had two bad knockouts against Dillashaw and Pedro Munoz. Both guys got popped for PEDs and like real PEDs.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that about Munoz.
Yeah.
But Munoz is scheduled to fight again.
Yeah, he got suspended for a while. So I mean, if you look at Garbrandt, he lost to two guys in competitive fights that got popped for PEDs. I mean, again, TJ knocked him out, but TJ knocked him out twice actually. Yeah. But I mean, I kind of hate what happened to Cody's career. To be honest with you, it sucks what happened to Cody's career.
When he lost to Munoz too, by the way, he got hit once and then his face turned kind of red. I don't know if he was out on his feet or not, but he basically went head down and was just swinging.
Yeah, he just went crazy in there. He just started brawling.
And that's what finished him, is he didn't go back to like his clean stuff. And Assuncao, I don't think is going to be doing that at all. I think Assuncao is like a much more passive striker, but more ground game.
And the way I kind of look at it is, again, I hate to do any kind of MMA math or anything like that, but
just do it. It'll feel good.
I mean, Assuncao just lost his last two fights. I think that this is a great fight to make because both guys are pretty talented guys, but I just think Cody is going to make a statement in this fight and really do well.
Yeah, I think that the danger in this fight is way less for Cody compared to the last three that he's had. I don't think Assuncao is going to come try to take his head. I think he throws punches and kicks and stuff, but not in bunches and not like a madman. Like he's trying to throw and he's trying to hit and not get hit, And I think there's going to be some spinning around on the ground too, where Assuncao's output is kind of low, but I think a lot of it's because he's like hanging out on the ground. So I see this as a decision for Cody. I don't think he's going to finish Assuncao, but I think he's going to win a decision that's like it's like an obvious decision, but not super good score.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, Assuncao's strengths are he generally fights pretty intelligent. He doesn't gamble a lot. He prioritizes his defense. And he's just a really good grappler, but it kind of all adds up to a point where, okay, they're not going to brawl. Cody will likely win a stand-up fight, so he won't engage in the grappling. Assuncao won't be able to get him down, but he's probably going to try, so there could be a lot of stall moments in the fight, a lot of defensive wrestling. So, unless Cody gets a knockout, do we see this fight scoring very well?
No, I have it just pegged as a low-scoring fight. That's won by Garbrandt by decision.
Probably, yeah, and it's funny too because Garbrandt really didn't win a lot of fights by decisions in his career. I mean, he mostly blasted through guys, but yeah, I kind of agree with that. Yeah, and Assuncao's a good fighter, and he's probably not going to gamble a whole lot. So he's not going to be open to the counter strikes and knockout punches and stuff. So
I think Garbrandt too. Like, I think he's too smart to get subbed easily. Like, if he's hurt, I think he maybe gets subbed like something. But I just don't see it going well for Assuncao.
Yeah, I agree, and it sounds older too. So let's get into the last fight of the night.
Yeah,
the title fight, Spencer versus Nunes. And I guess the first question is, does Spencer have any chance to win this fight?
No.
And I'm gonna say
I say no. I watched her last fight again against Zaria. It's against.
Well, you can really only watch her against, I guess Cyborg, right?
No, because Nunes is obviously better than Cyborg at this point. But
that's what I'm saying. I mean, that level of competition, and Nunes clearly better. But
when she fought, her last fight was against Farn. I don't know how to say this. I think this girl was making her debut, okay? And she's tall and she's lanky and she was reasonably durable. And what we saw happen was she struck with her for a little bit. The striking, honestly, the first thing I thought when I watched it was like, your striking is abysmal. Like, you're squared up on one leg coming in trying to punch, and I was like, this is terrible. I mean, you should get knocked out, which is probably what's going to happen on Saturday. And her strength was she took down someone making their debut from a regional circuit in the UFC one time, took the position, hammered a little bit, and then wins by TKO. The girl, I was not unconscious by any stretch. She was just covered up, and they called it. So if you're striking on the feet's terrible, and the only thing you're good at is like hugging somebody and grappling, are you going to beat Amanda Nunes? No way.
Yeah, I mean, Spencer's only chance is that she's like physically bigger. She can take all the shots, like hug on Nunes, get her against the fence. I mean, it's not a sustainable way to win. She can't really win this fight. The truth is, I really want to see Valentina Shevchenko somehow just grow and get a little bigger so she's in the same weight class, because I still think that Valentina is better than Nunes as a fighter, but it's just she can't beat her because she's way too small. And Nunes really is in no danger of losing to really anybody at this point.
Also, Nunes is actually bigger than Spencer, like a little bit, 2 inches taller, inch reach, inch in leg reach.
It's a horrible fight for Spencer.
Yeah, and Spencer, though, part of her problem is she should probably be down a weight class too and be a more dominant wrestler.
She's not very.
I don't think
muscular.
she's like in shape. I think she could lose some like walking around weight and be in a lower weight class and be much more competitive.
Listen, and that's coming from us.
And we're fat. I'm fat. Your scale says you're all green, but I'm pretty fat. Yeah. And if she agrees to lose the weight, I'll lose the weight as well. But I think she should go down a weight class. The UFC's thrown her to the wolves. I mean, they need to feed Nunes the same way they used to feed Cyborg. And they're saying, hey, well, if she didn't get crushed by Cyborg, maybe she can make it like a fight with Nunes.
I think next time we talk, we're going to talk about what we're going to do is we're going to have a conversation about how the ref should have stopped this fight earlier and they need to protect fighters and stuff like that. We're going to have basically an Anthony Smith conversation all over again.
I think it's crazy. But, if you're Felicia Spencer and you don't mind getting your head taken off one time, hopefully it's fast and you recover quickly. I think it's good because it's like, you just became well-known. You have a main event. You're probably getting paid more. There's pay-per-view dollars. Like, there's all kinds of good stuff for her.
Yeah, and I remember during the fight with Cyborg, they were trying to talk her up, like Rogan and all the commentators, and it was just terrible. She got her ass beat, and it wasn't competitive, and it was like she didn't belong in there.
She just survived. I mean, she survived for 2 rounds.
And the fight should have been stopped, I thought. So, I mean, I don't know.
It did show the decline of Cyborg a little bit, though. It showed Cyborg, like, slowing down a little bit in the second, third round.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You can't be, like, going 1,000% the whole time. But
I mean, she's a robot. So
my prediction is Nunes comes out. She's going to throw the same, like, 9-piece combination that she threw at Cyborg. She's probably going to clip her once or twice, drop her to the mat, and then finish her. And if it doesn't finish in the first minute, then Nunes will switch gears, slow it down, and start working takedowns and just ground and pound the scroll until it's over.
So the question is, Nunes is the highest salary on the card, and she's the highest owned on the card, right? We agree on that?
Yeah, but there's also a small amount of, like, dogs that are interesting. So the question is like, can you afford not to have Nunes, or can you find some way to work in, like, more mid-level people that are going to score well as a whole.
So I think it comes back to our strategy question that we were asking at the beginning, and we got to make decisions because if we have 20 lineups, how many of them do you want Nunes, right? Are you going over or under the field of, let's say, 65, 70% owned? And, what do we think of the prospects of O'Malley, Stamann, Menifield, and Byrd outscoring her?
Yeah, I think some of these, it's possible. I think Herbert Burns can outscore, especially if it ends fast. If it ends in the first minute, that could be like 100 points. I think Burns could score more than that. The problem too is like she's gonna win. How well is it gonna score? Probably pretty well. Is it gonna be optimal? Probably. I think most of her fights are. I mean, she's scoring like 120, 125. Those are optimal numbers at any price. So I like her. I'm just not sure how to build her in. And also, it's like if she's owned at 65%, if you totally fade her, can you fit in like another favorite or like someone you think is going to score well and then have less dogs? Because if you take her, I think you're doing 3 favorites, 3 dogs. And there's not like a ton of dogs that are like, oh, yeah, that guy for sure can win.
Yeah, I mean, we like coconut, but now you're taking chances, man. You got Meerschaert, coconut bombs, a Kelleher maybe, or Jussier. I mean, you're taking a lot of chances with your lineups, and I think people are going to do that with Nunes. So I'm going to build probably away from that just because it's my style. I never really try to build my GPP lineups like other people do and try to like just build them better. I think that's kind of a mistake in MMA because there's just so many variables.
Yeah.
So my style is probably going to be to have under the field on Amanda Nunes. Now, will I try to build a few Amanda Nunes lineups that I think are super different? That's what I'll do. I'll leave a lot of salary on the table, build different Nunes lineups that just look weird, and try to go that way with all my Nunes lineups. But for the most part, it's gonna be a fade, and I'm probably gonna get burnt on that. But at least all my lineups will look really, really good until the main event. So like I'll be like, I'm gonna win $1 million. I'm gonna win $1 million, and then Nunes will shut the lights off of Spencer and my hopes at the same time.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm actually leaning towards doing no Nunes in a way, but I think what I'll do is I'll probably do my 20 entries in the $3, and I'll probably do no Nunes whatsoever. Because with 20 entries, you have to like pick, you have to choose what you're gonna do, like what direction. You can't wheel it or it's a waste, because you can't get enough variables off on the wheel. So I might just do no Nunes and take the collection of Yahoos that I feel are most suited to win. And just do it like based on what I think, and then enter the single entries and like the cheaper tournaments, like a couple dollars here and there, with a Nunes combo. So then I'm kind of covering both sides, but I have a chance in 2 different directions.
Yeah, and that's unique because generally I'd probably advise the like kind of the opposite strategy where the single entry I'd probably try to do something different off of Nunes because everyone's gonna probably even be higher owned in single entry, and then with my multi entries kind of have the different Nunes lineups so you can cover some more bases. But I like your idea too. I think that's how you should be thinking as a player making lineups and GPPs. I mean, you got to think differently than the normal, and not bad. You're not thinking bad. You're thinking that, hey, is there a way that O'Malley can score more? Yeah, I mean, he can knock down Wineland once and then finish him, and then all of a sudden you're at 120 pretty quick.
Yeah,
I mean, we've seen some high numbers, and if you've noticed, we've seen some really high numbers
more
lately,
in the Apex Center too. The smaller octagon is causing higher numbers. Like there's more finishes and less running around.
And so I think we might see that increases variance on some of this stuff. So get funky. Try to get guys that have this upside to finish, like the different guys that we feel can score well, and win some money. We'll see everybody at the top.
Single entry, 1 million. It's coming Saturday.
All right. See you next week or whenever the next card is. Or all right.
If you have any suggestions, comments, thanks for watching. We know it's a little bit long one, but it's $1 million, so we said we should probably give it a whirl here. If you any questions, let us know. Feel free to reach out, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.